107 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. President Abraham Lincoln delivered his Gettysburg Address just 4.5 months after the bloodiest battle in the Civil War, fought to determine what kind of government we the people would embody. Now, Lincoln's words prompt us to consider the government we serve and our duties and obligations in preserving it as we are tested again and again. We the people. The writers of the Constitution left no doubt in whose country this is. This simple statement echoes the sentiment of the Declaration, that governments are to derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. When considering our obligations to the government, it's imperative to realize the government is endowed only with the powers given it by the people. The final amendment in the Bill of Rights makes this clear, saying the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution are reserved to the people. This means, ultimately, the government of our free country is made up of the united, cohesive body of Americans. Our democracy was designed to direct our duties and obligations toward one another. Upon signing the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin asserted, "We must all hang together, or we shall all hang separately." The founders agreed, a nation unified under a common goal is stronger than a house divided. The common goal of securing the blessings of liberty was the fire in which both the Constitution and the Declaration were forged. The Declaration announces the cherished principles of all American patriots by what the founders call the natural law, specifically freedom and independence under the unified authority of the people. To fulfill this natural law, the founders mutually pledged to one another their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. The Declaration outlines the basis of a government rooted in we the people. The Constitution then answered with clear directives that placed the law in the hands of the people. Our government is we the people. This means our duties and obligations are first and foremost to the Constitution, whose opening words identify the document as our government on paper. While this ideally extends to the physical authorities in the White House and beyond, when in conflict, upholding the Constitution must be prioritized. It all starts with claiming a patriotic identity. A 4-year-old boy walks into church, holding his daddy's hand, proud of their matching flannels and his new light-up shoes. But he is even more proud of the hat he wears every day, which boasts the United States flag. While checking into Sunday school, his new group leader asks him, "What grade are you in?" He says, "I'm American." "Yes, well, are you in kindergarten?" Incredulous that she would dare to assign him a different identity, he grins and peers out from under his cap. "No, I'm American." This little boy, a friend of my family, sets an excellent example of an American who has properly adopted his patriotic identity. Our hope of preserving the blessings of liberty which we enjoy and of forming a more perfect union call us also to claim this identity and pass it on to future generations. This is our right and our duty. Moreover, it is our responsibility to maintain the Constitution as the apex of our identity. So, we the people must not tolerate those who would abdicate our rights for the sake of power. Our rights can be infringed under the guise of providing for them, as Alexis de Tocqueville, a French political philosopher of the 19th century, explained. He condemned our current state of addiction to the benevolence of a large central government when he said, quote, "The right to education, the right to health care, the right to food and housing. That's not freedom, that's dependency. Those aren't rights. Those are the rations of slavery hay and a barn for human cattle," end quote. This reflects the principles of the founders, which were based on the belief that happiness itself is not a right, rather the pursuit of happiness. That is the Constitution we govern ourselves by and is imperative to our proper identity. Allegedly, upon exiting the Constitutional Convention in 1787, Benjamin Franklin was questioned, "Well, doctor, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy?" In traditional Franklin fashion, he replied ominously, "A republic, if you can keep it." Once we have properly claimed this patriotic constitutional identity, how then do we keep the republic? Primarily, we the people must contain the government and keep the balance of power in check. The Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution to prevent the misconstruction or abuse of its powers by the federal government, and the states are responsible for calling an Article 5 convention to ratify amendments that will further limit this central power when it gets out of hand. It is the obligation and privilege of American citizens to vote for elected officials who will uphold their duties under the Constitution and pass laws and elect others who will further this purpose. For example, Supreme Court justices are appointed by the president. It is the obligation of American citizens to vote for a president who will make the proper choice in justices. As de Tocqueville pointed out, in a democracy, the people get the government they deserve. It is the obligation of American citizens to promote just laws and oppose constitutionally unjust laws. Amendment 1 gives the people to petition the government for redress of grievances. This may involve voting, picketing, or even civil disobedience. So, it is our responsibility to stay informed. Thomas Jefferson questioned whether it is better to give energy to the government or information to the people. He concluded, quote, "Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. Enable them to see that it is their interest to preserve peace and order, and they will preserve it. And it takes no very high degree of education to convince them of this. They are the one sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty." End quote. A well-informed populace, electing leaders dedicated to the government of a constitution rooted in principles of united independence, is formidable indeed. Furthermore, our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms as an imperative to national military preparedness tells us we the people must be prepared to defend our liberty, risking even our lives, fortunes, and sacred honor. You and I are in a unique position because our founding documents stem unambiguously and unabashedly from the desire of men to live in a country where, paradoxically, free people govern themselves as a union. As our fathers affirmed in the Constitution, we the people are our government. As such, our duties and responsibilities are to stay informed, uphold justice, elect leaders who are similarly dedicated, and be prepared to pay for our freedom, because freedom is not free. Fellow Americans, fellow members of government, we the people, I leave you with Lincoln's noble words. It is for us, the living rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly achieved. It is for us, rather, to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the great cause for which they who fought here gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, for the people, and by the people shall not perish from the earth.